What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I want to talk about aliens. I have recently, in our progression series with me and my good friend Chris on his Twitch stream, have been doing our progression series, and with that I have at fairly recently pivoted to an alien strategy, and so what it was is just, it got me excited. All right, plain and simple. I started playing them. I know they're old cards and a lot of them are power crept at this point, but I still really like the archetype. We have potentially a new reptile archetype coming out of the next deck build pack. If not, I still think it'd be so cool. A lot of people really like aliens. It's one of those archetypes where you're like, oh, it's always been a really cool archetype, just hasn't been good for so long. This would be a really cool one if they went to support it. Maybe a structure deck, maybe 5 or 6 cards in a core set, whatever they want to do. I think this would be a really cool deck to support. So today, I want to go through all the cards that aliens have that I think are relevant. I'm going to leave out all the ones that are like essentially vanillas for modern day standard as far as monsters go. There's a lot of spells and traps that just don't, like battle protection, mirror force cards. They're just 2020, they don't do anything, and we're almost in 2021 now. So we're going to go through everything that's relevant, as well as some like reptile cards that are just generically like kind of support for them, and just talking about what they have and what I'd like to see for them in the future, because they are a really cool strategy that takes advantage of counters. This deck uses A counters, which are, I guess, short for alien counters, but maybe that could be something really cool that the deck does, but we'll talk about that as we go. So starting off with the monsters that are relevant, I want to start with Alien Ammonite. Now this is a cool card. It's a tuner that when it's normal summon, it just reborns a level 4 or lower alien straight from grave, but the monster is destroyed during end phase. So it's a cool little extender, just a +1. If you already have an alien in grave, summon it back, make a Hulk. I mean, this is a 1-card Hulk, assuming you already have the graveyard set up with any one alien. I think that's pretty good. We know what Hulk can represent by itself, but yeah, just a simple, cool card, cool tuner for the deck. Decent follow-up play, or even starter if you could get the graveyard set up before it. So, very cool. Next up, you have Alien Dog. This is one of the better extenders that I like that the deck has. I think back in the day, you were like, oh, this is a cool card to put an extra body on field and apply pressure. But now it's like actually a decent extender. If you normal summon an alien, this card summons itself from the hand, and when you do, you can put 2 8 counters on a monster your opponent controls. Which is really cool. So jumps out of the hand immediately. That gives you a second reptile on board, which can potentially lead you into some links that we'll talk about later on. Unfortunately, it's level 3. I wish it was level 4, so it'd be easier to make like King of the Pharaoh. What is it? King of Pharaoh Imps. And stuff like other rank 4s and stuff. But it is what it is. We'll take an extender where we can get it. You got Alien Telepath. This guy's not very good. He just removes an A counter from an opponent's monster to pop a spell or trap. I don't know. If the deck gets some busted card that just summons you multiple aliens straight out of the deck, then maybe this is a card worth playing because it's just a one of. If you need the back row removal, cool. Just spam him out and pop some back row. Cool. No big deal. Next up, we have Alien Mars. This one's a specific one that at first glance you're like, that's garbage. But when you read it again, you're like, the effects of effect monsters with A counters are negated except for himself. Well, if the deck pivots in a way, or they get support where they're just so easily able to, 1, spam this card out of the deck, and 2, just quick effect put A counters on opponent's monsters at like any point. Just quick effects, whatever, A counter, A counter, A counter. This guy becomes almost like a skill drain while he's on the field. So I get it, he's small, he could be easily walked over, but you know, if you can protect him and keep him on the field, I wish his stats were a little better and that he was a level 4, but like we said, you can't have everything. That'd be a really, really cool aspect. But yeah, I just wanted to throw him out there because I do think he could potentially, if the support is like specific enough to make him better, could be a cool card. And then for the boss monster for the main deck, it's like Alien Overlord. This card's not insane, but you can remove any 8 counters from anywhere on the field just to summon this out of the hand. So actually fairly easy to set up. Just put 2 8 counters somewhere there. And then once per turn, you can put an 8 counter on all face-up monsters your opponent controls. So just restack the whole field. And that's pretty much all he does. But he's an extender. You know, one thing I don't like about counters in general nowadays is if you quick effect put counters on your opponent's monsters, a lot of times they're able to just link it off, exceed it off, synchro it off. You know what I mean? Just get the counters off of them just by playing, like just by, you know, going through their extra deck engine, and it becomes a little tougher. So Overlord, still an extender. I threw him on here because he could just be important for putting bodies on the board if that's what the deck wants to aim to do, but not the most insane card as it was before. And then one random reptile monster I want to talk about was Lamia. She's kind of cool. If all monsters you have are a reptile, and then you can target a monster your opponent controls, change its attack to 0 permanently, and special summon her out of the hand. She's a reptile tuner, which is kind of cool. Also, if she's used for the synchro, if she's used for synchro material, you can actually target 2 monsters on the field and change their attacks to 0. So that's kind of cool. I mean, like, it's not insane, but it actually is, like, decent, right? If your opponent has a full board of stuff, permanently making their stuff 0, that's not bad for sure. So cool card. I don't know, just want to make note of it. And then we get into the spells. This is where, like, I think things start to pick up. I think the spells and traps are definitely where aliens become a little more interesting here. This card's insane. This is one of the more newer cards they've got. Not super new, but in the last couple of years. It lets you target a monster on the field, send an alien from deck to grave, any alien from deck to grave, so Foolish Burial, and if you do, put 8 counters on the monster you targeted equal to the level of the sent monster. So you could theoretically send a level 6 alien in Alien Overlord and put 6 counters on the field and get a Foolish Burial at the same time. And his last effect says, during your main phase, except the turn it was sent to the graveyard, you can banish it to add an alien monster from deck to hand. That is not once per turn. Neither is the other effect. It just has to be there. So technically, if you open 2 of these, you could activate them both and then get double search on your next main phase, which is actually kind of insane. But a very, very cool card, right? It sends something to grave, which sets you up for Alien Ammonite to be normal summon and get you a resource back. While at the same time putting 8 counters on stuff. Obviously, I like that also. It can put 8 counters on any face-up monster, not just your opponent. So going first, you could put 8 counters on your own monster just to get a monster engraved for, like, Ammonite or something, whatever. And just to have this engraved so that it will be able to come back. This is an awesome, awesome card. It does exactly what the deck wants. Quick effect puts counters on things. Somewhat of an engine card. We don't particularly have anything that's amazing being engraved alien-wise, but that could easily be something that could change real quick. If Konami just made one alien monster that's actually really good to send to grave, this card becomes immediately better because then you add an extra extendability to it, right? So it sends a monster to grave, puts 8 counters on, a lot of 8 counters on the field, and it gets you an additional plus for a follow-up play on the following turn, which is really, really awesome. I love this card. This card will be a staple 3 of in any alien build going forward. Then you have Mysterious Strangle. This is another really cool card, right? So this card lets you destroy a monster on the field with an 8 counter. Then you can special summon a level 4 alien straight from the deck. It is destroyed on end phase, though. So this is one of those cards that I think just gets better the better monsters we get, right? Because the popping is the same, right? We have more cards now. I will say that too. We have more cards now that can quick effect put 8 counters on stuff. So this becomes an actual disruption, right? But also the ability to summon alien from deck, right? You summon an alien from deck, maybe we get a level 4 Stratos-esque monster. So you summon an alien, even though it would be destroyed on end phase and it's your opponent's turn, that's a body that protects your life points till the end of the turn, and it gets you a search for a follow-up or something, you know what I mean? Like, there's other ways it could go too. Maybe they give you, maybe aliens get an alien hand trap that says, like, if you, like, it's a monster negate, but you have to remove 2 8 counters from the field to use it or something like that. Like, that could be kind of cool too. Anything, right? So there's a bunch of there's ways that this gets better just based off of the monster you can summon off of it. Viper's Rebirth, this is kind of just a generic reptile card, but the only problem with it is you have to have only reptiles in grave to make use of this, so you kind of have to be playing a very, very, very straightforward reptile deck. Nothing that's not reptile if you want to play this. But it special summons any non-tuner reptile monster from the grave, and it's destroyed on end phase. So kind of a cool extender. You just have to play hard reptiles, and depending on the kind of support, maybe there's not really much worth in playing other cards. But I don't like, it's so rough, right? Because it means like hand traps are rough with this card, and just any generic monster, extra deck monsters that just aren't reptile, kind of tough. But I still felt like it was worth noting, just cause. And then we have traps. Okay. For traps, I'm going to start with Offering Up to the Snake Deity. I talked about this in the other video, but this is actually a really cool card for one particular reason, okay? Because we have other cards that are very similar to this, like Guard Dragon Cataclysm, Icarus Attack, the new machine one. It's like the electromagnetic railgun or whatever. It's for machines. and they all work essentially the same, I believe. They tribute one of their specific type, right? Machines, winged beasts, or dragons, to target 2 cards on the field and destroy them. This card is very similar, but not quite. This card lets you target a reptile monster you control and 2 cards your opponent controls and destroy all 3 targets. So instead of tributing the monster, you target it as cost and then destroy it as effect, which means, one, if you had an effect to chain to this to somehow remove your own monster to give it an additional effect or gain some additional advantage without having to actually destroy your monster, great. You don't have to give up that monster that way. You could use it for something else. Or maybe you had a monster that had his own quick effect to banish himself to the end phase, Farfa himself or whatever, right? And tag out, you don't lose the body. He'll come back or something, and this card still resolves to pop those cards. The other reason that's awesome is that if this card ever gets negated, you're not tributing his cost. You don't lose the reptile, then this gets negated, and you don't pop your opponent's cards, so you just gave up 2 cards to bait 1 negate. If they negate this, you still keep the monster. Which is really, really good. So this is just an awesome card for reptiles. I like it a lot. Like Torrential Tribute is good, I believe this card is really good too for reptiles. So very, very cool card. Also, there's a little bit of synergy. Maybe we get floaters, right? So if you got maybe a reptile monster that floats just generically on destruction, you could destroy it to pop cards and then still float off the monster you destroyed, rotate some resources. Some pretty cool options there. All right, and then I think this is the last trap we have here. There's not a ton of traps here for aliens specifically, but we have Planet Pollutant Virus. This is a pretty cool one. You contribute an alien monster to destroy all face-up monsters without A counters that your opponent controls. Without. That's very, very important to note. And until the end phase of your opponent's 3rd turn after this card's activation, you can place 1 A counter on every monster they summon. So this card's kind of crazy, right? One of the downfalls you could say of this deck, or downsides of the deck, is that a lot of the cards rely on you being able to put A counters on stuff. And if you're not able to consistently put A counters on all your opponent's stuff, the deck can struggle to really resolve a lot of its effects and get the effects that really add the power to the deck that you're looking for. But this card kind of avoids that because it actually just destroys all monsters without A counters. You do have to tribute an alien for it, so you do have some cost there. And then the bonus effect at the end, which is just for the next essentially 6 turns, yours and your opponent's, you get to put an A counter on every single monster your opponent summons. So there's no way for them to oh, my monster has an A counter on it, I'm going to link it off to get the A counter away. No, the new monsters that you linked into is going to get an A counter, so no big deal. So you get A counters essentially for 3 concurrent turns to make use of. So this card is very, very strong. I think it would be crazy if we got some card that kind of searched any card that has A counter in the card text, right? Because a lot of these cards don't have alien in the name, right? Planet Pollutant Virus, Mysterious Triangle, A-Cell Recombination Device. A lot of these cards don't even have alien in the name, but they do have A counter in the card text. And so maybe we could get something that searches that, because sometimes you don't, in 2020, for consistency's sake, you'd rather be searching these cards out instead of having to just play 3 and hope you see it as often as you can. But it is what it is, right? You got to make do with what you got. But it's a pretty cool card. It's pretty powerful even for 2020. Like I said before, if Torrential Tribute is powerful in 2020, then this is powerful, because this just doesn't even have to wait for your opponent to summon. It can just, at any point, as long as you have an alien, boom, wipe the board. Done. And I like that a lot. All right, and then we'll move to the extract to finish it up here. We have Alien Shock Trooper M-Frame. This card came out actually not that long ago, but it's a very, very cool card. So he essentially takes any 2 reptiles, pretty generic too, and he has a quick effect to let you discard a monster to place A counters equal to its level on any monsters on the field that you want, distributed however you want. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to grave, you can special summon non-link reptile monsters with different names from your grave, up to the number of monsters your opponent controls with A counters. Very, very good. So it floats on destruction generically. Like I said, you could destroy your own stuff with offering to the snake deity to then float back into some more monsters. Not too shabby. And he gives you the ability to put A counters on stuff. And he's also a 1900 beater for a Link 2, which is pretty big for a Link 2, right? So very, very good. I think he's pretty good there. He'll probably come up at some point in Alien history. And then we have Reptilian Echidna. She's actually a really spicy card as well. So she takes any 2 monsters as long as one of them's a reptile, even more generic than the last guy. When she's link summoned, you can target a monster your opponent controls, change its attack to 0. Pretty cool. During your main phase, if your opponent controls a monster with 0 attack, you can add reptile monsters with different names from your deck to hand up to the number of monsters your opponent controls with 0 attack. Also, you are locked into reptiles from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. So she's at least a on summon, make opponent's monster 0, and search any reptile in your deck. There's no level restriction here. It's just at least 1 reptile, and if for some reason your opponent has a second monster with 0 attack on the field, you can actually just search 2 reptile monsters. Now, you will be locked into reptiles from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, but honestly, with how powerful this card can be, especially in like mid turns, not turn 1 especially, but after that, that's kind of crazy. That's actually kind of wild. So yeah, definitely do not sleep on this card too much. And then other than that, we have like King of the Pharaoh Imps and Cosmic Fortress Golgar. Pharaoh Imps, he's literally what's his name? The new one. I can't remember, the rock one. It's just a generic rank 4, and you can attach material to search a reptile monster from deck to hand. So searches any reptile in the game, which is actually pretty good. This definitely could be a card that comes up in reptiles. And then you also have the Cosmic Fortress. This card's not crazy, but he can bounce all face-up spell or trap cards on the field. So he could bounce like your own face-up spell and traps so that you could reset them, reuse them, whatever. And he distributes 8 counters to the field, and then he also can like remove 2 8 counters from anywhere on the field to just destroy a card your opponent controls. That's non-targeting. I guess it's pretty nice. It's not insane, but with Ammonite being level 1 and most of your monsters being level 4, he's just an easy like Ammonite for a monster. Make him pop a card, right? Like that's kind of the basic of that. He's not that good, but he could come up. He may be a 1 of in the deck, but that's a lot of the alien cards that I think are like any kind of relevant for the future of aliens. What I'd love to see for the deck is definitely new monsters. We need new monsters, absolutely. We need 1 or 2 actual starter cards, right? Monsters that actually say like on summon, special an alien from deck, search an alien from deck, search a card that lists 8 counters in its card text, whatever it wants to be, whatever Konami wants to allow them to search. They need something there, something starter wise to allow them to continue to plus, because they do have some plus cards, right? Like this is a +1. Dog is just a free body on field. This is like definitely a +1, or maybe that's another thing that we talked about earlier. I'd love to see a monster that could be sent to grave and give you additional something just by being sent to grave. So A-cell recombination device. Maybe we talked about the floating before. What if they just gave us an alien that says when it's just generically sent to the graveyard, give an additional effect? That way you can make use of this with that alien there. And then I guess what I'd like to see is a win condition. That's definitely something that feels like it's missing. I think they need a boss monster, like a real boss monster. Like the Link 2 is not a boss monster. Overlord's not a boss monster anymore. All it does is summon itself and put 8 counters on the field. Like that's not boss monster. We need something that disrupts our opponent, pops a bunch of cards. He's not a disruption. The deck needs a boss monster, something there to like make you feel threatening to your opponent. Like popping 1 monster is not that scary. Popping 2 cards with offering is fine, but offering is not searchable, right? So the deck needs some kind of coherent way to consistently get to multiple decent disruptions without just having to hard draw specific traps. And that's really what I'm looking for, is consistency in that form of being able to just establish those disruptions, assuming we're not getting like hand trapped out the booty hole. But yeah, I like this deck a lot, honestly. I honestly slept on this deck for so long, and literally in the last, I don't know, 3 weeks since I started looking at it in the progression series with Chris, I just got more and more excited about it. I was like, I like the designs of everything. Like, look at this artwork. This artwork looks so cool. They tie it in so beautifully. And it's really cool. So I'd love to see them expand on this. I mean, I've been making videos on it. I think people for a while can agree that Reptile is definitely one of the most, I don't want to say abused, but least explored types out of all types in Yu-Gi-Oh! And so I'd really love to see Konami go in, and I think 5 alien cards, whether it be, like I said, structure deck, 5 cards in a core set, Konami's been doing that a lot lately, is just Oh, an older archetype? Cool. What's 5 new cards in the next core set? Cool. Good to go. That would work. Or maybe just a side set or whatever with multiple cards of support. I'd be down for anything, honestly. I'd love to see new support here, but we'll obviously see. We don't make those decisions. We just make videos and hope, right? So that's going to do it for me here today, guys. Sorry this video went a little long, 20 minutes. I didn't mean for it to be this long, but you know how I can ramble. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. Leave in the comment section down below what you think about aliens. Like, what kind of cards you'd like to see about them. What are your just thoughts about them now? I'd love to have a conversation there and see what you guys think, like, the deck needs more than anything. But yeah, that's going to do it for me here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Subscribe if you haven't. You want to see more discussions like this one in the future. And I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.